Hey, so I went and had some experience in the real world recently where I had to learn how to communicate in a disadvantageous position while having to defend myself and what I wanted. The dynamic was simple. Whatever the maximum the other person could get or claim to get in a conversation is what they'd go for. So, how do you negotiate under such circumstances? And these are the mistakes that I saw others around me make. The first mistake is to assume that when you're asked a question, or when someone has just criticized you for not knowing something or has insulted you, that you need to answer immediately. You don't. It's far more powerful and impactful, and it gives you time to think as well. If whenever anyone accuses you of anything, or says anything, take a moment to catch your breath. You don't even need to do it in a way that is non-intentional. So even if it's just like counting to three in your mind before you respond to what the other person is saying, I find that this tactic often makes the other person, well, it removes their temper, it can remove their aggression, and it gives everyone else that is party to the same conversation the same amount of time to think as you've just gained for yourself. The second big pitfall I see is people talking about hypotheticals, people talking about ideas, because an idea can be interpreted. And so what was very common for me to see was that for ideas, or when someone would say an idea or their interpretation of something, they would immediately be, that idea would be utilized in a way to invalidate the other person's argument. Because any way that that idea can be interpreted that is different from the conversation will be used. And so instead of talking about ideas or the way you think it works, the way you think you understand it, you need to talk about the example of exactly what you did and the way you did it. The third pitfall that I saw a lot of people make is when they would talk about examples, they would often give unnecessary information, and that unnecessary information would often be weaponized against them. For example, they would talk about some setup that was no longer working, and they would mention that they were doing it on their system. As their system is now a point of difference, that would then be used to invalidate them and what they were saying, even if what it was perfectly valid. So in these conversations, only give the example of the exact mechanism that was breaking and the way in which they were using it. The final piece of advice is that in some situations, if you come from a position where you're invalidated and have less power than the other party, they can just use anything to argue against you. And so they could pick anything from your style of word choice, the way you talk, the way you look, the way you sit, the way you answer, and it doesn't matter what you do, what you say, how you act, what you're going to do, and what you note down, because what will eventually it will come to is it will come to their word against yours. And so if you find yourself in this situation, you need to seek an additional route, so plan an exit strategy and get yourself the position that you deserve.